Today, we're looking at some board game mad science. Century Spice Road is a well-liked card game about trading spices.
Don't do it.
Century Eastern Wonders is a new pick-up and deliver game about trading spices.
You can't do this.
But together, their powers combined.
You don't know what you're making.
They become...
You will kill us.
A pick-up and deliver card game.
We will die.
About trading spices.
We'll be dead. Look at this.
But wait, there's more. An as-yet unannounced game in this series will soon be announced and released, and this spice mix will get even more...
Even more dangerous, you mean?
I was just going to say more spicy.
No, this was the end of us. How would you even begin to review all of the different combinations of...
Well, I thought we could review Spice Road, then Eastern Wonders, and then we review them both combined.
Madness.
Well, I don't think it's very difficult, honestly.
All right.
Century Spice Road is a tidy little card game. Every player starts holding the same 2 cards, and then the race is on to fulfill these contracts first, which require different amounts of turmeric, saffron, cardamom, and cinnamon, and are worth different points. Your turn is most commonly spent picking a card from your hand and playing it, transforming or ensnaring more and more spice, like some kind of evil child catcher, except spice doesn't have any parents and can't feel pain, so it's fine. Or you can spend your turn picking up a card from the shop and adding it to your hand, and then sliding all the other cards in this shop 1 down. If you want something further up the conveyor belt, that's fine. You just have to leave a sticky trail of cubes up to the card that you want, and then if future players take that card, they get all the cubes on it. The third way you can spend your turn is taking all the cards you've played and putting them back in your hand, ready to be played again. Alternatively, the fourth and final thing you can do on your turn is take all of the cubes required by one of the contracts and fulfill that contract. And if you manage to fulfill one of the contracts in the prestigious number 1 or number 2 slot, you get a metal coin that is going to be worth 3 or 1 point.
All right, so immediately my question is, why should I play this instead of Splendor? Another game of grabbing cards and sort of gem spices, different colored gem spices like gem spice and purple spice and sapphire spice and whatever. Another card building engine game where you invest those gems in getting more cards, which give you more gems, which gives you waterfalls of cards until you're living in a Hallmark palace or having a Valentine's Day orgy or something. You see, I love Splendor, and there is probably no better example of a quick 20-minute engine building game that is all about getting stuff, to buy stuff, to get more stuff. Splendor has so expertly sounded those depths with its precision sonar that Century Spice Road feels a bit like a tin submarine bouncing along the bottom of the ocean. And I don't want to say it's not fun. It is fun. It is enjoyable. But the two compared, I'm sorry, it just does not have the same sheen. Look, if you know the two, it's impossible not to compare them. It's like having a chocolate chip cookie and a diamond chip cookie, and I know which one of those I want to eat.
Stop right there, Paul Dean.
My mouth.
Don't know if I agree. I never fully got on with Splendor, right? I dislike that when I play it, my friends are cramping down my decision space, meaning I have less fun. Whereas in Century, I feel like I'm racing my friends. It's more playful, and I love that they're occasionally putting down spice to claim cards, spice that I can then snaffle up like a giddy mentat. Splendor is short and sharp, whereas Century is long and gentle, and I personally don't know which of those games I think is better.
But at least can we not agree that this is not an amazing game? It's not great.
I like but don't love Spice Road. I wouldn't necessarily race to recommend it, and I dislike that it's targeted as a luxury card game where you're paying for these bowls and you're paying for these coins and these enormous tarot-sized cards, and yet it falls down because the card backs aren't particularly nice and the art on most of the cards is really mediocre.
The art is a bit weird. This man seems baffled about this other man pointing at his groin, and these people seem to be harvesting purple. What is that? Saffron? But the thing shows mustard. I can't remember all the spices are. Mustard, ketchup, wasabi, brown sauce. It is cool. The mechanisms here are great. It's exciting to sync up all the cards in just the right order so that you turn one thing into 2 other things that become 3 other things. And you do these with perfect timing, so you snatch a card or even a victory card just one moment before all of the other players, and then throw them entirely off like you have thrown a metaphorical card in the metaphorical gears of their metaphorical puzzle car that they're desperately trying to drive, but you're just driving it a bit better and you're going honk honk.
Yep, and I loved the brain-melting realization that there aren't just good and bad collected hands of cards in Splendor, there is different types. I might have a deck of cards that lets me spin up a ton of cubes from when I go down to almost nothing. And Paul might have a hand of cards that means he can very quickly turn yellow cubes all the way into the maximum level cinnamon.
Just kind of did that,
wow,
actually.
There you go. And yet, both of us might struggle when trying to fulfill a contract that just wants a ton of red saffrons. Then you get a table of players all trying to think their way into this puzzle from different angles, trying to figure out if any of their cards, or maybe this one, could do it.
Well, this is it. This is part of the fun, is everybody will find different things harder or easier as the game goes along, and they will find themselves in sync with the flow of play or out of it, and that's great. And there are going to be people out there, I'm sure, who will absolutely adore this mental puzzling, and we're not quite those people, are we?
No, there are still a lot of card games in my collection that I would rather play.
So, we like it.
Yeah.
Good but not great.
It's very good, but it's not very great.
So then, shall we travel further down this spice road?
What do you mean?
That we travel, I mean, metaphorically.
Oh, the next review.
The next review.
Right.
The road is. There are signs. We're
Yes.
driving. I'm driving.
Here we go.
Or you can drive. I can't legally drive.
All right, it's time to drop the bathrobe of mediocrity hanging off of this review and reveal the nude body of something beautiful. For Eastern Wonders, the second game in this series, we now have an art team that includes the legendary Chris Quilliams, my favourite art designer working in board games today. We have a game that feels fresher and more entertaining. Even the spices we're collecting are more mouth-watering and involve less syllables. We're now growing ginger, mint, chili, and cloves. Much of the game is exactly the same. Players are still fussing with 4 colours of cubes and transforming them in an effort to try and fulfill contracts first, but instead of fussing with cards now, all aboard, because there's a board, and you've got a boat. So I did a joke there. So on your turn now, you're going to move your boat. If you want to move more than one space, then you have to throw a big box of spices overboard. When you arrive at a space, you can build a trading post there. But if someone else already has a trading post there, then you have to throw another spice overboard. Also, if there's a boat there, you have to pay the owner of that boat 1 cube. But once you've built a trading post there, then you can transform things into other things. The outposts you build are worth more and more victory points, and every column you clear gets you a profoundly satisfying permanent upgrade. Do you want more cargo space? A faster ship? Do you want a free bushel of chilies every time you build an outpost? That's a trick question. You're going to want all of this stuff. Eastern Wonders lets you build new maps and new shapes of maps. It lets you follow different strategies. It has a bit of area control. You end up clashing and playing with your friends, and my goodness, if Spice Road was a long and maybe a bit of a dry hike across a desert, then Eastern Wonders felt like the oasis at the end, or a salty sea spray that left me excited and charmed and invigorated.
So I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
So tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
I want to... Go here without having to pay you an extra cube to get my mint.
Well, I'm not going to move my boat, so...
Immediately, right from the start, things are more challenging and more competitive and more interactive in the most frustrating way. Never have such tiny, benign houses caused so much rage and anger. Right from the start of the game, the choices you make, the places you go to, the things you drop down matter. Great deal. You're carving out your own personal territory, your own areas of the map that you can bob around with in relatively merry comfort. And because there are so many different map states possible, because there's so many tiles that you can rearrange, every game's going to be different. For everybody, the start or middle or end of different games are going to be harder or easier, making your initial choices even more vital, making everything even more challenging.
And I'll tell you what I like as well. So
tell me what you like.
What I really, really like.
Ah!
Spice Road as a card game felt like a little card game in a big box, and at $30 it just felt, I don't know, too expensive, a bit wrong, like a kid in a big coat who wanted to buy board games, but he was under the legal age. Whereas Eastern Wonders, they've had to work really hard to pack this many components, this much game into this box, and yet they retail at the same price, which means this game, this lovely game, full of stuff, starts at just $26 online.
That's really good.
I love it.
What is the legal age for buying board games?
Legal age for buying board games is 45, as you and I well know, and Paul and I are wanted by police.
That's why we have to get into that code.
Well, I am, because Paul is 46.
Right, despite both games being similar, there is really quite a lot of contrast here. A contrast of what is obviously physically in the box, a contrast for how I feel like I'm using my brain as I attack this problem of a game, a contrast in how there's so much more shoulder barging and pushing other players aside as you try and get to the right island or the right resource or the right thing that you need, the right victory token, and yet you still get to make your complex little cube machines and then cry in frustration as they don't quite sync up and produce you the right amount of cider or red wine or Jägermeister or scotch.
I don't think Jägermeister is made on an island.
Yes, it is. It's made on Jaeger Island.
Okay. I love this game. I can't remember the last time a box managed to pack so much game and so much fun into such a small price tag with just one page of rules. I would absolutely give this game, The Shut Up and Sit Down, a recommends badge.
I love you, but not this game. So we're at an impasse. I think Century...
You wouldn't give it the badge?
I would not. I really enjoy it, but it doesn't tease it doesn't
tickle
hit
your...
the line, it doesn't, the gauge, the light doesn't come on when you're driving. When you're low on fuel, that's not a good analogy. I had a really good time with it, but not a good enough time that I really want to throw it back on the table and splay all this out again.
This has never happened before.
It has.
Are we giving it half a badge, though?
What's half a badge? A ba? Or a j?
This is a disaster. Can we move on to the main event yet?
I can't legally stop you. This is where the board gaming mad science begins. Do not try this at home unless you are a trained board gaming professional. Quentin Smith, please explain the procedure.
Yes, Doctor. So, what we're going to do, first off, put down some of these blank C spaces to make the Spice Islands worse. We're going to get rid of about 10% of Eastern Wonders components, and we're going to bring in the cards from Spice Road. Everyone starts with the same 2 cards they did in Spice Road, and we have a little shrunken shop. Now on your turn, you can play like Spice Road. Either you play a card to get some cubes, or you can spend your turn picking up a card from the shop, or you can spend your turn picking everything up. But the new move in From Sand to Sea is that you can burn cards from your discard pile or your hand, before you pick them up again later, to move your boat and build outposts. Now already, when I started playing this game, I had disappointment in my gut. Combining these 2 games into something more heavy and nuanced was meant to be the unique selling point of this whole series, and yet not only are we playing with no more or less components than these games, we're not even playing with more or less rules. Still, the rules are packed into just 1 page of manual.
And what happened next, Quins?
Well,
The following reenactment features real participants and footage actually shot at the time. Some viewers may find this disturbing.
Well, I started playing From Sand to Sea and I was focusing on the card game. Because it's a full card game, you know, and I was playing cards and having fun, and then I realised, oh my goodness, you know, this whole board exists. So then I started playing the board game, and that it would just take up my whole head. And then I'd remember that the card game existed, and then I realised that to play well, I was expected to play 2 games, sort of at the same time. And, you know, then I would have these turns where I had a really hard decision to make that pulled me in 2 directions at once, and that's when I heard myself making noises.
Can you make these noises for us now?
It was angry, but sort of it's very hard. It was hard. Ah! You know, like
I see.
And then there was one time where Paul said something. I'll never forget it. He said, "This mint chili, get your boat, take that, go." Take your mint and shove it up your as well with a clove. In having these 2 different games you're playing of cards and area control. It's kind of like having two pets, and if you want to improve one, then you have to let the other one suffer in this exquisitely painful and fascinating interplay. Like, if I have cards I could play, but I want to move, and so I have to feed cards into moving my boat as if I'm pouring expensive diesel into an outboard motor, that's excruciating, and then I have to spend another turn picking them back up. That's awful. Much better, right, to just play them and get all the spice that I can get turn after turn, except then I'm going to watch my friends claiming space after space after space on the board, plopping down their little houses, and that's awful as well. You know what? You heard it here first. I think designer Emerson Matsuuchi bloody did it. I think he's taken two simple, fun-loving games, and in owning them both, you can play a third game where you don't have to learn any more rules, and yet it's a very different experience. I was shocked by how brain-burning From Sand to Sea is, and I really, really enjoy it.
And in what is maybe one of the most meta moments in all of board gaming history, combining these two games together to create another game is startlingly similar to the actual in-game mechanic of combining some cubes to create another kind of cube, and also at the same time also is costly and time-consuming, because here's the thing, that's what you got to do, isn't it? You want to have this game, you got to buy the two separate games, put them together. Do you want to do that?
Well, yeah, let's talk a bit about not just this game in the aesthetic design sense, but what kind of a product it is, because it's weird.
So how do we approach this? What do we say to people? Do we say buy the one game that you like and the other one that it's not bad and bolt that on to get a slightly better game?
Well, yeah.
I mean, that could be two lots of like 20 or 30 pounds. That's a month's rent in London town.
I mean, yeah, what's bizarre is that in order to fuse these games together, they are both very similar. And so the opinion of me and also people on the internet is that you're going to like one more than the other. For me, it was East and Wonders. For some people, it's Spice Road. But that means if you buy both, which is the entire point of this series, then probably you'll like one more. And because they're similar enough, probably you'll just play that one and then not play the other, which means whichever one you buy, the other one then just becomes a kind of wasteful and expensive expansion pack. So for me, I say buy East and Wonders, but then you're spending $30 just to get a deck of cards.
Well, this is it, because to a degree they share components that they wouldn't have to if they came together.
Yes, if you buy these separately, then of course you get two lots of bowls and two lots of wooden cubes.
And the elephant that is not in the room right now is the third game, which is coming out next year, which does that factor into your decision?
Are we going to tell people to buy East and Wonders only for them to release the third game, which is better than East and Wonders, and then we're like, oh, you shouldn't have bought East and Wonders?
Or quite possibly in 2020 they just release all of them in sort of a big box collection, and then that makes everything,
because that's how board games work.
Point.
Yeah, if they sell all of the Century games in a big box for $50, maybe that's worth waiting for. It's weird. It's one of the hardest things to recommend we've ever had to recommend. But hey, here's what I'd say instead. If there isn't a right answer for where and how much and what to buy of Century, I don't know if there's a wrong answer either, because let's get some perspective. These games, both of them, even Spice Road, are still better than 95% of board games out there. They do the job. They're entertaining.
I enjoyed both.
Exactly. So maybe if there's not a right answer, maybe there's not a wrong answer either. Maybe if you want either of them, you can just buy them and feel safe that you can't really go wrong.
I feel like we're asking the people out there to make up their own minds.
They can do that.
To have their own opinions.
That's probably...
Can't do that. They'll become self-aware. They'll start making their own choices.
That is what, like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
In the film The Terminator, where he does his own things. He has his own decisions.
Paul, there's no way that's going to happen.
In real life?
Yes.
That Arnold Schwarzenegger would make a decision, would have his own independent thought.
Yes, it's also impossible that our audience could possibly become self-reliant after all these years.
Killing machines. All of them governing California at the same time.
This doesn't bear thinking about.
If you like that video, good. I'm glad. I'm very happy. This is Quinn's combining two other games now, which is Twister and Water, which is a popular game in Britain. Is it good? No! He says it's great. Here are some other videos you can watch on YouTube. The YouTube man will overlay them. His name's Stephen, and he works in their office in that little shed that they've got.
got a crab.
Great!